So I guess first things first is hold on, sorry. Okay, what year were you born? Just the year. No.
1980.
Okay. And were you born in Taiwan? And if not, at what age did you come to Taiwan?
Yeah, Taipei, Taiwan.
Okay, cool. And then what is the earliest memory that you have of your childhood?
Wow, earliest memory. You know what? This is gonna sound a little bit funny, but the earliest memory is I remember I was around 3 years old, and I would just I'm an only child, so it's kind of like my mom's very overprotective, so she's always want to make sure I'm always fed. And as 3 year old, it's really hard to kind of like sit around and then finish an entire meal. So I would run around. And I used to live in this factory in New Taipei. Right now it's called New Taipei City. It used to be called Taipei County. So we lived in this factory, and my parents, they were kind of management in that factory. So during the lunch break, she would kind of just like chase me from one level to another level, just trying to make sure that I eat the whole food. So that's kind of like my earliest memory around 3 year old. And I know that I felt full, but my mom didn't. She felt like, you hardly even finished one bowl of rice. How can you say you're full? So yeah, I guess that would be like the earliest memory. That's also, it's kind of interesting too, because I remember my mom always tell me that I learned how to read when I was 3 years old without anybody teaching me. Mainly because in Taiwan, the TV is a little bit different from the US. Um, they have like this automatic caption. It's kind of right here. You can turn off the closed caption, but in Taiwan, they sort of just print it on there, so you're always reading subtitle. And with Chinese characters, they're all kind of like pictographs. So basically, if you can sort of like connect the word with whatever they're saying, so you can kind of learn how to read. And that's kind of like how I got to know a lot of Chinese characters just by watching TV. So that would be the earliest memory.
Wow, that's very cool. Wow. Okay, cool. So, in what kind of like neighborhood did you grow up in
You know what? It's interesting because I moved around. Um, I was born in Taipei City, in National Taiwan Universal Hospital, but afterwards I moved to my parents, well, my dad's house in Taipei County, which is New Taipei City, I told you earlier. And then I think when I was 3 years old, I moved to another part of New Taipei City. And when I went to elementary school, I moved back to Taipei City. So I guess for me, I have a lot of places I grew up. I would probably say Taipei City. Um, it was it's kind of like a rough neighborhood. It's a little bit kind of like South Central LA of Taipei. I always make fun of the neighborhood. I say, we make South Central LA look like Disneyland. So it's kind of like, yeah, I did a play in my college in UCLA. It's called Typhoon Night, and it's actually based on my childhood story. And I had one of the gangsters in the play say that line. It's like we're in Manga District. That's the district I was in. I was in Manga District. We make South Central LA look like freaking Disneyland. And that kind of got me really laugh. But yeah, so that's the part I grew up in. There's actually a movie, about gangsters that with the same name, Manga. So if you're interested, you can check it out. But yeah,
Taipei?
that's the district I grew up in.
Okay, so
It's one of the oldest part of Taipei.
oh wow,
Yeah,
very cool. So it's like a lot more like urban, I guess. Kind of like
it's urban. It's a little bit impoverished, but right now they're going through gentrification. They're going through a lot of re, I guess redistricting, and also renovating old buildings. So yeah, it's kind of like chaotic over there, but it's getting better.
okay. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. You said a student film when you were in UCLA?
Oh no, it was a skit. It was
Oh,
for Taiwan Culture Night. Yeah, I did a 2 hour stage play, and I was the
oh,
director, writer, and producer of the play. So I made sure that play is really about Taiwan, because all the stage plays before my year, they're all about immigration stories. And I'm like, immigration story is something that's being told over and over again. I want to be authentic. I want to go back to my childhood. So that's kind of like where I did.
okay, cool. So it was like about like your childhood in Taiwan, basically.
Right.
Okay, wow, that's cool. I mean, if you want, you can like talk a little bit about that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I did say it's a rough neighborhood because it is. I mean, if you go to anybody, oh, sorry, if you ask anybody in Taiwan, I'm from Wanhua district, and they'll be like, oh, wow, it's I'm sorry to hear that. It's kind of like that, but it really didn't feel that way. I mean, when I was little, yeah, sometimes there are little gang fights, and then sometimes middle of the night you hear somebody like ring your doorbell, and when you listen to the speaker, you'll hear them like kind of crying for help. I remember there's one prostitute sort of ran away from her brothel or something like that, and then she was trying to get anybody to open the door to let her in because the gangsters are trying to go after them and trying to capture them again and get them back. So that's one very, very vivid memory I had. But other than that, it was okay. I had a fun childhood with my friends. Some of them later became probably I don't say criminals, but some of them actually became less than perfect. But then most of us actually grew up to be okay. I was one of the fortunate ones. I was able to come out and sort of like immigrate to the U.S. So, and now I live in a neighborhood which I thought my children should appreciate. I mean, this is a lot nicer neighborhood than what I had. Yeah, so hopefully they'll like it. I mean, I asked them too. Do you like where you're at? And my kids always tell me that. Yeah, we like it here. We don't want to move it again. So okay, good. Yeah.
wow, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you
No,
gonna say?
no problem. Yeah, I was.
So what kind of values did your parents like instill in you as a kid?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
What kind of values did your
Huh.
parents instill in you as a kid?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, very, very. You know what they told me to follow a lot of guidelines. They gave me a lot of rules. But if I want to say values, it'll probably be honesty. That's one thing. They are very big on that. They always tell me that honesty is a man's second life. So, you definitely need to be able to live as an honest life. Otherwise, you'll live in a very pressurized and a very stressful life rest of your life because you need to make up different lies and be dishonest about whatever dishonesty you display. So the honesty is definitely best policy. That's one value they insisted on. And the second thing is, my mom always says that you should always keep your palm down instead of upwards, but it means you should be a giver instead of a receiver. What she meant is, want to be generous, and also be the person that gives back, to people who are in need. Now, when I'm a little bit older, I'm sort of I have a different view on that. It's not like I'm not a giver. I just feel that sometimes when you need help, you should still ask for help. I think that's something my parents didn't really teach me about. They're always saying, Ken, if you can do it, just do it. Just try your best and try your hardest. If not, then you're a failure. No, but basically they're saying like there's nothing that you can't do. But now I have a family, and also I'm a little bit wiser than before. Hopefully, I understand that there are limitations to what we can do, and so one thing I wish they had taught me is able to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help. So that's what I'm telling my kids nowadays. They live in. I mean, they have pretty good schools, and whenever I have parent teacher conference, I always tell teachers that making sure my kids know to ask for help when they need to, and not just be silent about it. And the teachers actually appreciate that, so pretty grateful. Yeah, but those are two values I think most important values that my parents taught me.
Yeah, I would definitely say what you're saying about like asking for help. I definitely think that's a really important one.
Yeah, a lot of Asian parents, they are not very good at that. They always feel that, oh, you know what, just keep the weakness to yourself, be tough, be strong, and just try to figure out yourself. So, yeah.
Like,
okay, see?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. So, what kind of conversations did you have around the dinner table?
Oh, you know what? That's a very good question. You know what? I can't really remember a lot of time where we spend time talking at the dinner table because they're always very busy. Even though we live in, some sort of rough neighborhood, but everybody pretty much there are in some kind of small business. So their daily schedule is like 4 a.m. to like 2 a.m. kind of like thing, because they had a florist shop. So in the very beginning, I mean, in the very early morning, like around 4 o'clock, before dawn, they had to like rush to the flower market to start buying up flowers for the store to replenish, whatever's been sold. So after that, they work, pretty much all the way till like 10 p.m. until they close. And then after they shut down the door, make sure everything's locked, they still have to work on the back orders until like, they can go to sleep. So um dinner is often eaten, very in a very fast pace and not together most of the time. I remember some of the occasions where we actually had the opportunity to sit together, especially when we eat out, right? When you eat out, it can't work. So those are kind of things I can remember. But conversation wise, pretty much always about, it's about my parents and their family feud. They're not like, I'm not saying like, they're like Romeo and Juliet, that kind of family feud, but they don't love each other that much. Yeah, but yeah, it's just really about in-laws and the kind of like conflict they might have. And dinner table is pretty much about that. I'm just kind of sitting there and minding my own business. There's like no cell phone that time, right? I can't just like kind of escape from that. So I do listen to both sides. My mom will be like, your mom's saying this and that, and then I'm very upset about that, but I can't. In the traditional Taiwanese family, like the woman isn't really allowed to kind of like speak back against the in-laws. Well, pretty much similar with the men too, but they had this this hierarchy, family hierarchy in place. So the only way they can really vent and complain is with their spouses. So that's kind of like what I deal with every day at dinner table. They'll complain about in-laws to each other.
Yeah.
So that's one conversation I remember. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Wait. So were you an only child, or did you have
Yeah.
siblings? Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, what language did you speak at
Mandarin
home?
and some Taiwanese.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your first language?
I would say, kind of interesting. If I had to be very technical about it, it would be Japanese.
Oh. Okay.
Because when I was very little, as I said, my parents were really busy. So there was a period of time where they couldn't take care of me. So my mom sort of dropped me off before I was 3 years old, dropped me off with my grandparents. I wouldn't say that's my earliest memory because I can't remember. All these things are hearsay. I mean, I got it from my grandparents and parents, their oral history. So they my grandparents were born in the Japanese era when Taiwan was part of Japanese colony. So their first language was Japanese, pretty much, or Taiwanese. So it's easier for them to speak with each other in Japanese. And so when I was in, living with my grandparents, were my mom sort of just kind of dropped me off. My grandparents have to take care of me because they're so busy. So I think I picked up a lot of Japanese from them when I was little, because when you're a kid, when you're like 2 year old, you absorb language fast. Like it depends on whatever they're speaking, so you will be able to understand them. So yeah, but afterwards, when I got to elementary school, Taiwan was still under martial law at that time, so the government was really, really firm in making sure everybody speak Mandarin. So you can't speak Taiwanese, you can't speak any other language in the school, otherwise you get penalized for that. So yeah, so I wouldn't say totally forgot, but like I forgot most of the Japanese I picked up when I was a kid and replaced it with Mandarin.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. What was your favorite food, and who prepared it for you usually?
Well, my favorite food. You know what? I was taught. I won't call this the value not being wasteful. It's one of the rules my parents gave me. But yeah, I was taught not to pick, kind of like, be picky about food. So I eat everything that was edible. And even though, oh wow, 3 year old stinky tofu, I'll take that. No, 3 day old. But yeah, so I wouldn't say, I would say for anything I feel like eating at the time, and generally Taiwanese food because I was in Taiwan. So stinky tofu, minced pork rice, the beef noodle or meatball, all these things are, yeah, they were all great.
Okay.
I mean, if it's in front of me and it's hot and prepared, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there one person in your life who like would, I guess, prepare the most, or like who was always preparing food for you?
My mom.
Your
Yeah.
mom?
Despite the fact I said that we don't spend a lot of time eating together, but
Oh,
she
okay.
always made sure that the food's on the table, and so that we could go eat. And in Taiwan, back then we would have this kind of like fly proof sort of cover, and where we place on it's like made of shroud of sash or something, but it's meant to keep the flies out. And she would prepare all the food and use that cover to cover up the entire table, so that way when anybody want to go eat, and we'll be able to remove it and eat and then put it back for someone else. So yeah, my mom's pretty much 90% of the time she's the one who prepare food, and she's really good at it too. Yeah,
Okay.
because she had a really good teacher. My grandma, really good cook. My grandma on my mom's side, so she taught her everything, and they were both taught by a very famous chef in Taiwan back then. Her name is Fu Pei Mei. Yeah, they took her class. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Mhm.
That's wow. Wait, and so what you were saying earlier about, so she would like put all the food
Yeah.
under kind of like the fly netting, and then people
Yeah.
would just come and like take the food when they wanted, kind of deal.
Right. Well, there's just three of us, so whoever has time, right?
I see.
So my dad finished his work, and then he'll come and grab a few bites or finish a bowl of rice, and then he'll be off working again. And for me, finish my homework or got off school, then I would do the same. Yeah, because one of us has to be the one watching the store, and the other one will have to be in the back, working on, it could be a bouquet, it could be like the flower basket, whatever, and the other person would, have the free time to go eat.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're all taking turn.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So I guess so. Yeah. What age like did you start working in the store?
Well, when I could probably, yeah, I would probably six or seven.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I could understand, like the numbers, and also how to add and subtract, use the calculators, that's kind of like when I started working. Yeah, because when you're watching the store, right, like customer come in and say, "Hey, how much is this, orchid?" You had to say $60, and then she'll be like, "Okay, I'll buy two." Then you had to know 60 plus another 60 is 120. So I think about six or seven, I got to learn about these math things very quickly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, and my first experience, oh horrible.
Oh really?
Uh, yeah, because I think I forgot what flower my first customer went in trying to buy, and I gave her the wrong price. My mom
Oh.
got so pissed. Yeah, because it was like 1/10 of what's supposed to be sold, and she's
Oh.
like, "What? It's $200. You sell her 20? I think it's 20 or something." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't know the other zero mattered."
Just added another zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
maybe because I haven't learned 200 yet, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just said 20, and
Okay.
the customers say, "Oh, wow, that's cheap,"
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank God I didn't sell the entire bucket.
I know that was yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what? Okay, you kind of did already answer this, but I guess you want to go into this more. What did your family do for a living?
Well, it's kind of interesting because my mom was trained as a nurse. She went to Taipei Medical School for her nursing, and my dad was chemical engineering, graduate with chemical engineering degree from his college, but they all ended up, opening up a florist shop, a nursery slash florist shop. It was actually one of the largest in Taipei during its time.
Wow.
So yeah, and yeah, that's what they did for a living.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is, what was your relationship with your mother and father?
I would say kind of interesting. Well, I love my mom, and I know she loves me a lot more than I love her. I think, yeah. After all, I'm the one that put her through the 10 months trial, right? So, she's very protective, like I said, and for me, being only child, I wouldn't say I was spoiled, but I was definitely very opinionated, and I want to like kind of like make decisions on my own instead of going through everything, with their approval. So that's kind of like the only conflict that we really had is whenever I try to do something I really wanted to do, and they would disagree or like, maybe like discourage me from, taking that route. And so I would say that's kind of like the relationship we had. It's constantly lobbying, for support and try to, deter each other from getting their way. But apart from that, we're pretty close. I talk to my mom almost every day, before I got married, and afterwards, probably at least once every week or twice every week. So, yeah.
So you say like I guess you're not as close with your father then.
Um, it's kind of hard to kind of say if it's close or not. I mean, to other people, maybe you'll feel like it's not really close, but at the same time, and we're all emotionally attached, to each other. I mean, I'm her only child, and she's definitely my only mom. But like just kind of like the person I always seek advice and seek approval from. So I can't really say I'm not close, but to a point that, and I don't really feel that she's always on my side. How about that? She's Yeah, definitely she's not always on my side, because she always wanted to make sure that she's my mom and not my friend. And so that's kind of like a relationship we have.
So okay, you already said that you don't have any siblings. So
Right.
let's skip this question. Okay, so what kind of education did you get in Taiwan, and where was it?
Well, I got to fifth grade in Taiwan before I came out here to the States. So all the way till fifth grade in elementary school. In elementary schools in Taiwan, they go all the way up to sixth. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a raw deal for me, because I had gone through 5 years of grade school, right? And I didn't get to graduate. So
Yeah.
my kids, I mean, my friends always make fun of me. It's like, oh, Ken, you know what? You're not even an elementary school graduate in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And we're all college grad. So I said, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like I got there, and it was a fun 5 very, very interesting years. I enjoyed it very much. I still do miss it. You spend 5 years of your time with friends that you see every day, so it's kind of like up to fifth grade in elementary school.
And then where, just in the same like city that you
Yeah,
lived in?
some district, Mongol district.
Okay, so I guess the next question is, what was a normal day like for you at the age of 10 or 15? You could choose an age, whatever like you remember best, I guess.
10 or 15, those are, yeah. When I was 10, I moved to the States. So I didn't live with my parents. I came here alone. So I was living in with a white family. Actually, they were my legal guardians. Yeah, so it's like just living with a bunch of strangers, and so that was kind of like interesting, because it's, as I said, I was an only child. So there wasn't a lot of years that I lived without my parents, and that was kind of difficult at first, but memorable. I remember I had to learn a lot of things on my own, and also especially dealing with people that are not my family, and at the same time trying to cope with them and then making friends in a completely strange environments. Because when I came to the States, I started out in Seattle. Well, greater Seattle, was in Redmond, actually, Kirkland, Redmond area. So my school was like 90% whites, and not a lot of immigrants, but very nice people, incredibly nice people. And they taught me a lot, even though I didn't really speak a lot of English. I remember I was walking around the school with the Chinese English dictionary, and so I would be like, "Oh yeah, I need to go bathroom. Here, let me flip to bathroom in Chinese. That's where I want to go." And they'll be like, "Oh, bathroom. Okay, it's over there." So it was really they were really kind. They were actually like, lead me there. Like, it doesn't really matter, guys or girls. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm willing to help." And if it's a girl, I'll be like, "You know what? It's okay. I can see it. I'll just go my own." Yeah. They're like, "Sure, yeah, okay." Yeah. So that's kind of like the the life I had. So typically the entire day would be try to figure out what time to go to school, and also the school bus, get on the school bus and talk with people, try to learn more English, try to get more assimilated. I remember the first day I was on school bus. well, in Taiwan, I never had school bus experience. We just walked to school.
Yeah.
But in the States, they basically they had a policy in the district that if you live like more than 1 mile, 1 mile and a half, kids have to be on school bus to go to school. So I remember I made some of my first group of friends on the school bus, and this kid was telling me on the first day, said, "Ken, I know you're new here, but let me show you how to be cool in the United States. All right, you gotta have pants like mine." And he has like this ripped jeans, like with his knees sticking out. I'm like, dude, in Taiwan, only like the poorest of the poor people wear things like that. That's, and he's like, see, your pants are all completely not neatly, ironed. That's not cool. You got to rip it. You got to use the scissors and rip it. I'm like, dude, this thing's expensive. I'm not gonna do that. So that's kind of like the cultural shock I had. But yeah, they're all pretty cool. They're all trying to help me fit in. One thing that I found myself fit in was actually baseball. That's something that both Americans and Taiwanese enjoy, and Taiwanese are very crazy about baseball. So even, and also baseball is something that doesn't require a lot of language. So I remember that's one thing I would do every day at school too. When there was recess, we play like baseball or like some kind of schoolyard games, and that's something that I would do every day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds fun.
And afterwards, of course, there's homework, and I'll try my best to get the host family to help me out, with understanding the homework problems. I was really good in math, didn't require English, but everything else was a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so the host family, so was it like an exchange program that you
It's not, well, sorry, it's not host family. They're legal guardians, but
Oh,
sometimes they call them host family. Yeah.
I see.
But they're legal guardians.
Okay. And within that, like, were you also still their only child, or did you have like?
No, they have their kids, so we all live together.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a family with they have a son and a daughter, and we're all around the same age.
okay.
Yeah, so we all go to school together.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I guess this is kind of like going back to your time in Taiwan, but
Okay.
what were some of your favorite places to be as a child?
Oh, that's a good one. My parents like to try new restaurants, and when they absolutely are in the night for comfort food, they'll go to their favorite restaurants. So um they like Sichuan food a lot. So we'll go to these Sichuan food restaurants in Taiwan, near the Taiwan Normal University night markets. So there's like this really nice Sichuan food restaurant that we always eat there. And whenever they don't really have time, they'll be like, "Ken, here's $20, go eat whatever." And I'll take the $20. Well, $20 in Taiwan is a lot less, it's not smaller in the US, but yeah, I would take that and then go to like maybe night market or like a food stands, and I would get like pork minced pork rice, as I told you, and also like maybe meatball and some pork blood soup. Those are part of one of my favorites that I always. And in fact, right now, even if I go back to Taiwan till this day, I still would go to like night markets to eat at those places. Oh, there's one place I really like, this dumpling place. The extremely affordable and good dumplings, and yeah, it's really near my house. That's a place I will always go and eat to. I would eat like 50 dumplings per meal. Yeah, and I remember the first time I ordered 50 dumplings, and the owner came out and said, "What? 50 dumplings? Oh yeah," and then they'll be like, and they'll sit right there. They'll be like, "Okay, I'm gonna sit right here and watch you finish it because I never seen a kid could eat 50 dumplings." Yeah, it's kind of interesting too, as I ate a lot. I wasn't always, remember I told you about when I was 3 year old, right? I couldn't really finish a bowl, but when I got older, during puberty or like, pre-puberty maybe, like I started eat a lot, and 50 dumplings to me was like, yeah, it's something I could do it. Yeah. So yeah, that's one memory I have.
But yeah, I've heard that like the night markets that are really like like some of the stands even have like Michelin stars apparently. Like the food is just like really top notch.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because as I said, everybody's trying to make a living. So when they're in night markets, you could kind of taste different family recipes from every stand. So one stinky tofu would be different than another stinky tofu you taste in another place. So that's why when you go in Taiwan, when you go eat good food, you always go back to a restaurant that fits your palette. So yeah, it's kind of like what I do too. It's kind of unfortunate now. I go back, I see a lot of old places I used to eat at, they shut down. Maybe because they make too much money, they decided to migrate to the US. I don't know, but yeah, but
That's pretty
that
cool though. Yeah, just kind
yeah.
of like a diversity of like recipes.
Hmm.
Um, okay, cool. So, the next question is like, could you tell me a little bit about your friends? Like, what did you play with them, and how much time did you spend with them?
Sure. I spend a lot of time with my friends because, as I said, I'm the only child.
Yeah.
So I'm the kind of kid that go home and now it's just like, throw my school bag into the house and say, "Mom, I'm here, I'm home." And then next minute I'm gone. I'll be like, go next door and say, "Hey, let's go play chess." Oh, sorry, Miss Chan, he's not available. Okay, so I'll go to next door. So all the kids on the block are pretty much friends. So we just kind of like hit every door to see which one has plenty of play. So and it's kind of interesting because our block, it's pretty much all small businesses. So all kids have to like work in their own family. Like in my classroom, we have our friends. They have all sorts of different special abilities. Like for me, I could sell flowers. I could arrange flowers. That's me. Not really sexy, but that's what I did. But I have like I think this female friend that we have in the class, just awesome. She could kill chicken, and then whenever we do this biology sort of class, science class, and then we, instead of dissecting frogs, we dissect chicken wings, right? And the teacher will always ask her, "Hey, yeah, so tomorrow we're going to have this, biology class. We're going to try and dissect chicken wings. Can your family sort of donate, chicken wings to the class?" And our class is like 40 students. That's like every chicken has 2 wings. That's like 20 chickens, right? And she'll be like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll do it." And then next day she'll come back and with like 2 bags of chicken wings, and then we'll be like, "Oh wow, that's crazy." And then she's like, "Yeah, and I killed them all." Yeah. We're like, "Oh my god."
Wow.
Whoever marry her in the future, gotta watch out. She can kill. Yeah, but that's kind of like our class, and they're very diverse in terms of background. So some friends are really good in selling fruits. They can like tell you exactly what kind of fruit to buy. It's sweetest. They have these kind of knowledges. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So I
Yeah,
guess you
yeah,
could.
and like,
No, sorry.
sorry.
Continue.
No, I'm just saying like that's kind of like the classroom makeup we had, the
Mm,
social makeup.
yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like, I guess, like, did you have kind of like one main friend group, like a couple of friends that you would always hang out with, or it was kind of just like a whole class, like you would all just like hang out?
It's both. Okay, there are two major groups. This may sound strange, but in Taiwan, parents always trying to push their kids to study as high as they can go, and one of the biggest difference is how much, whether or not you're paying extra to have the teacher to do this after class session for the kids. So I mean, it's against the law, but all parents do it and all teachers do it because that's how they make extra income. So it's kind of like after school, the teachers would do a tutoring session, and you pay them like maybe a few $100 a month, and then like maybe 2 or 3 days out of the week you'll have this tutoring session, right? And so you'll see half of your class there,
Yeah.
whoever parents can pay for it. Okay, so you're there. So the teacher, what they do is they will actually teach you, good teachers will probably really give you a good lesson, on whatever things you couldn't understand during class, and she'll teach you more. She'll actually show you how to solve them. But the bad teachers, they're kind of let you know what's going to be on the quiz next time. So you just study those quiz.
Yeah.
And guess what? Next time when you take the test, those people who didn't take the class, you fail, right? Well, not fail, but then you don't do too well. And for those people who actually pay extra, and you'll be able to advance further. So that's kind of like, it automatically separates the two groups. So obviously people who gone to the tutorial session, you're closer. You would go on to field trips, because sometimes the teacher would be like, I make enough money this month. Let's take you all to like park and let's have fun, kind of like that. So so yeah, that's kind of like the childhood experience we had, and the rest of them, it's kind of sad, but most of the parents, they probably couldn't afford to have their kids to go to those after school sessions. As I said, it's a rough neighborhood, so probably 1/3 or 1/4 of the parents were in sort of impoverished economic status, so they're not able to do that. So their kids won't be able to advance further, as the rest of all other people. So that's the first two groups, and the second group would obviously be gender. Girls will hang out with girls, guys hang out with guys. So that kind of just separates even further. So the people who are in tutorial class, the guys would have their little groups, and then girls will have their own groups. So I sort of just hang out with those people that I'm close with.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. So, I guess do you still keep in touch with like a friend or any friends from your
Mhm.
childhood in Taiwan?
Some of them, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I try to go back to Taiwan as much as I can.
Mhm.
And whenever I go back, I would hit them up and say, hey, you want to come out and hang out, and we can have dinner, or food, or karaoke, whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, I still keep track. I'm still keeping contact with some of them.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So, what is one of your favorite memories from growing up?
Hmm. Favorite memory? I have a lot, actually. I
Yeah.
try to
I
be
mean, you
optimistic
can
with my
tell
life.
us. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, that's my favorite memory. Oh, on the weekends, my parents will allow me to go live with my grandparents, the one that actually spoke Japanese, I told you earlier. So because obviously I spent time when I was real little with them, so they love me a lot. So, and I enjoy to stay with them. So every weekend I would ride the bus for about 45 minutes by myself, to go to their home, like about 15, I think about 15 kilometers away, so about 10 miles away in the mountains. So they're in the mountains is totally different, because we're talking about like my normal home's like a rough neighborhood, and their neighborhood, it's like Bel Air. It's like really cool. Yeah. So I when I go there, it's kind of like different. You don't have to worry about gangsters, stopping you on the streets, asking for smoke. You're walking around with your grandparents, and everybody know them, and like, hey, Madame Chan or Mr. Chan, how are you? Oh, that's your grandson. He's so cute. Just like back then when he's little. So I had fun. Hanging out with them. So that's part of my favorite memory, is to anticipate the coming of weekend, so I could get on the bus. I still remember the bus route number is 260. So I would take route 260 and go from Manga district, and you'll travel all the way from south to the northern part of Taipei, and then to their neighborhood. And I would get off, and then I would walk by myself to their home in the in the area, and I would spend like 2 days there. So, and afterwards, I'll be able to ride the bus back to my old home. So yeah, it's in the mountains, so there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of animals. Nice neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned the bus. So is like the public transportation there pretty good?
Uh, it really depends on how you define good. Convenient, yes. But it's really packed. It's really busy. It's whenever you sit there, especially if you sit in the bus for a long time, I mean, there's smell of sweats, right? There's also like the body heat, because there's so many people. They're all standing. It's not like in the U.S. Right? Pretty much everybody sits, because nobody ever ride the bus, right?
Yeah.
So when you're riding the bus, most people just have their own seat, and you don't see people like stand around and the bus. But in Taiwan, it's packed. So yeah, and you fall asleep very often, because you just get dizzy, and then all this smell of gasoline, smell of people, and you just kind of doze off. But there's one time I dozed off, and it's kind of like a paranormal experience. I dozed off, and I woke up, and I was like, oh my god, I'm scared, because usually the time I took the bus is around 4 o'clock. That's when we get off. 3 o'clock is when we get off school. So I would go home, grab my backpack, and then around 4 o'clock I would take the bus, and then it will travel, as I said, an hour to get to my grandparents' destination. So by the time I get there, by 5 o'clock. So there was one winter where sun sets a little bit earlier, and again I was in the bus, very packed, and I dozed off. I forgot, and I forgot where I was when I woke up, and I just said, "Oh, shoot! where am I? And so I just, got off the bus. I just ring the bell, stop the car, got off the bus. And then I realized, wait a minute, I don't know anything about this place. And this is like the middle of nowhere. And later I found out it's kind of like a stop between my grandparents' place and the national park.
Oh wow.
So it's like in the middle of nowhere. And so I got off. I said, okay. I was about 8 years old. I thought to myself, okay, I'm here alone in the middle of the mountains. There are no lights because there are no lights in the mountains. And so I could go forward, right? Because I know there's a terminal station at the very end. I can go there and take the bus back. Or I can just sit around here and wait for the next bus to come. Or I could just go back down and see if I could get to my grandparents' house. But since I had no idea, where I was exactly, I don't know if my grandparents' place ahead of me or behind me. So I decided to go forward because no matter what, you either hit my grandparents' house or the terminal station. So like when I walk for another like 30 minutes or something like that, and when I got to the terminal station, guess what? Usually terminal station is packed with people. It's very busy because everybody's waiting for the bus to go back down. But that night, for some reason, the entire terminal station was dark. There's nobody there. I was like, okay, did I hit holiday or something like that? I mean, I didn't know about like, bus station never closed. But yeah, I was like, okay, so there's nobody here. I'll just go somewhere else, you know. And I just decided to go to a direction that ended up travel through national park and got to another city. So I walked about 9 kilometers.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, in the middle of the night, and it was actually in the middle of not just national park, but there's a lot of wild graveyards all over scattered around. But I didn't know it was dark. So I finally got to another town, and I went to an apartment building, got the security to call my parents, and they were already all scared as hell, right? Because their son was missing, 2 hours ago, and they had no idea where he was. And finally, they came and picked me up and got to my, picked me up and then took me to grandparents' house. That was one very interesting experience I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, nothing to do with the question you had, but just kind of
No.
like popped up in my mind.
No, yeah, that's interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah, the police was like, "Wow, your grandson's kind of incredible." And most kids would just cry and
Yeah.
just like, where am I? And so I walked 9 kilometers through a national park in the middle of night.
Wow. Very impressive. Um, okay, so okay, yeah. So can you describe a particularly worrisome or challenging experience from your childhood?
Besides that, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, you can kind of just like talk about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm. There was one time. Well, as I said, the neighborhood I was in was, not great. So during the time in the 80s, Taiwan's economy grew by a lot. So a lot of people got rich, a lot of people got wealthy. And that also means that there's a positive correlation with crime rates. So a lot more kidnapping start happening because a lot of kidnappers realize that, hey, these people, they got rich off the trades and international businesses. So let's go kidnap their kids and let's go kidnap their children and then ask for ransom. I mean, my parents weren't like wealthy or anything, but the kidnappers wouldn't know. They're just going to grab over the kid, right? And then ask for ransom. If your parents happen to be rich, great.
yeah.
So um it was in a period of time when there's just so much kidnapping going on. Everybody was scared. Everybody was like trying to make sure their kids gets from point A to point B safely. And I remember there's once I was walking around and there's this guy was stalking me. He's about mid age, about like 40, I think, early 40s, and with a little mustache. And I I kind of knew because he stops when I stopped, and he started walking when I started walking. So, but he always keeps a really manageable distance. If he runs, he'll get me. But then but then it's not that close, so I won't be too alarmed. But I knew he was tailing me. So then that's when I realized, wait, I was on my way from my house to the teacher's tutorial session. That's how we talked about earlier. So it will take me some time to get there, and there's going to be parts in the middle where I probably won't be able to get away from him. And if he decides to be the one that's kidnapping me or whatever. So what I did is I went to a very busy store. It's a very busy store, but behind the store's front, there's a very busy casino. Okay, it's an underground casino. And so I managed to go into the store, and I saw him was standing outside the store waiting for me to get out. But I went into the casino, and he couldn't come in because what if he comes in and I managed to escape, right? So the best chance for him to stay out there, just kind of staking out. So I was in the casino for a little bit. The people were smoking there, so I didn't really like it, and so I just walked out from the back door, and then managed to escape. So that was probably one of the most challenging experience, because I knew if I was kidnapped, then chances are if they couldn't get the ransom, they'll just kill me, right? Because I would have seen their face and they couldn't leave any witnesses. So the best chance for me to is actually to escape. The only option for me is to escape. My parents, there's no way they can pay up the ransom. So that's one challenge I had. And later on, I knew, because my parents asked me, hey, that experience you had, it's kind of like it's kind of like interesting, because they just got a threat from an anonymous source that says they want to kidnap my children. I was like, who will kidnap our children? No, we're not that rich. And my mom was making fun of me and said, I actually wish the kidnapper to take you. You're being very, a huge problem in my life. And she was kidding. But yeah, so it's kind of like when we kind of matched the pieces together, we realized that, hey, that's exactly what happened. They made the threats and they were trying to kidnap me, and I escaped. So that was a challenge I had. Not sure if that meets your question, answers your question.
Definitely. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess another escape though. Another you got out of the situation.
Yeah. I was made for great things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's really impressive for a child. Okay, so when you grew up, what kind of life and profession did you imagine having as a grown up? So for example, what was your dream job, or ideal kind of family, house, whatever situation?
Besides the president.
Oh, okay.
No, just kidding. Yeah, actually, that was on my mind, was really little. But I guess I wanted to be a lawyer and a businessman when I was little, because I realized that Taiwan was going through a process of becoming a democracy, like true democracy. It was under martial law, so a lot of people were sort of advocating for greater freedom, greater liberties for people, and most of them were in the legal career. So that's kind of like what inspired me to really become maybe a legal professional in the future, or maybe to become a lawyer, so I could help those people, whoever got jailed for wrongful reasons, and try to get them out of there. And also at the same time, I realized that you can't really do things you want to do things you like to do if you're not wealthy, if you're not rich. I mean, I could totally understand that from neighborhood, because everybody is kind of under the water. All their parents were always arguing about money. There's lack of money. There's not enough money. There's not enough income. So so that's kind of the two things, professional or career choices that I saw myself pursuing when I was little. Yeah. Even though my parents and also my grandparents from my dad's side always wanted me to go for medicine or become a doctor. My grandfather on my dad's side was a doctor, so he always wanted to see his children become, or his grandchildren become, doctors. That wasn't for me.
Okay. And so I guess along with that vision of becoming, like you said, a lawyer, or anything, did you have a specific life in mind also, kind of lifestyle?
Specific what?
Lifestyle maybe, or just kind of what your future, I don't know,
I guess when I was little, I didn't really have a lot of expectation about what a good life should be. I just say, hey, family, kids, people love me. I don't want to be alone, because I was the only child, so I spent a lot of time with my friends, I mentioned earlier, because I was pretty lonely. I mean, there are pretty much two paths you can take as an only child. You could either be very, very extrovert, right, and make friends with everybody and have fun every day, or you can be very introvert and just kind of stay at home, play video game, watch, videos, movies, or whatever. It's considered luxury back then. Right now, you're just streaming, but
Yeah.
back then you had to rent tapes. It's considered very, very luxurious to actually watch movies every day. So those are the two paths you can take. For me, my parents didn't have money to buy video games and rent those tapes, so I had to choose the extrovert path. So I went out there and played with friends, and so for me, it's really to have a sizable enough family for me to not feel alone. So that was kind of like the only, if you're asking me for the most truthful answer, that will probably be it. I want to have a family where, I don't want to feel alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay, so second
Doesn't sound very
question.
exciting, huh?
No, I mean that's honestly I feel like that's what everyone wants, right? In life, that's the
Yeah.
ultimate goal. Yeah. Okay, cool. So second to last question is
Yeah.
in summary, what kinds of feelings and words come to mind when you remember your childhood in Taiwan?
Unforgettable.
Okay.
That's probably one thing, because I could probably go on and on for days, from the earliest childhood memory to the last. But yeah, definitely unforgettable. And if I would relive, I mean, Taiwanese parents, they can hit their children. Corporal punishment was very common. I mean, I tell my kids today, like they live in the States, they have no idea. They live in the great town South Pasadena. They have no idea what getting hit is like. Right? I'm like, I told my kids, like, see here in Marengo, your kids don't punish you, don't hit you. And my youngest goes to Monterey Hill.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, see, I don't hit you. Your teachers don't hit. But when I was little, we do, like, our teachers and our parents are having this competition who can hit their students and hit kids more than anybody else. So when I was little, whenever we do one tiny thing wrong, oh yeah, you said a lie. Here's a few slashes for you. Or a teacher like, Ken, how come you got 95% on your Chinese Mandarin test? That's not good. Okay, you need 5 slaps until you get 100. So that's kind of like the childhood that we had. But at the same time, it was kind of memorable because everybody got the same thing. If one child is getting punishment, getting like spanks by their parents in these, that would be like domestic violence. But if everybody got it, right, that's just childhood. So that's kind of like what we had. But even though it's pretty violent, my parents, sometimes they would tell me that they apologize for being so harsh, for being so violent back then. But to be honest, like right now, I kind of like, I don't really think much of it. There's not a lot of psychological scars I had. I just realized that's what they want to do. They want to make sure that I was becoming a good kid and not become like some other my fellow classmates, what they became. So I would say it's unforgettable. The life lessons I learned, the experience I had, the friendship I had, and also the everything. Yeah, it was during a very, very chaotic time in Taiwan's history. They were becoming a democracy. So we are experiencing a lot of things that a lot of young children today, they could never imagine. I remember when I was little, our teachers, because they're part of the system, part of the government system, so they were actually purposely making us feel bad about our own identity. Because I'm a Taiwanese, I'm a 16th generation Taiwanese. So a lot of people in Taiwan, they're actually from China. So they migrated to China after the Civil War. So the government was actually filled with people like them. So when they were teaching, the Taiwanese population, they want to make sure they're all Sinicized, basically become Chinese. So whenever they ask you who you are, you have to answer that you're Chinese. You can't say I'm Taiwanese, even though I am Taiwanese. So I remember one day, teacher asked, "Hey, Ken, introduce yourself." So I'm Ken. I'm Ken Wu from Taipei City. She said, "No, that's not your ancestral home." I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm 16th generation Taiwanese. I mean, I'm more in that's longer than Mayflower's history, right?" And the teacher said, "No, try it again." So okay, fine. From Fujian province, China. She says, see, there you go. So that's the kind of thing that um, our education was like, our childhood was like. It's very repressive. And I did mention earlier that we're not allowed to speak other languages but Mandarin. My parents, they speak Taiwanese at home and Mandarin, but I can't speak Mandarin in school because when we do, we get punished. Either we had to pay money, being penalized for speaking our own mother tongue, or we have to do some uh, extra physical labor or something like that just to redeem for the mistakes that we did, just for exercising, our right, basic rights to speak, our native tongue. So yeah, those are kind of like life we had. But it's interesting. It taught me a lot. It taught me to be, to cherish democracy, cherish liberty. Right now, I'm very involved in the communities for Taiwanese Americans, and that's partly why. I want to make sure that people in our generation or later generation understand that you have to work hard and fight hard to preserve the liberty they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so last question.
Sure.
So lastly, if you could tell your 10-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Oh, 10-year-old self, one thing. Gosh, that's a good one. Okay, this is going to be a very truthful answer.
Okay.
I would tell him to always be adamant about what you want and not to give in just because not to give in to peer pressure just because everybody thinks that one's better and you don't. And so that's part of one thing. Always go for what you want.
Yeah.
I realize in my life because I'm an only child, and so I depend a lot on my friends. So peer pressure is a very big thing. I didn't want to feel alone. Granted, I've done a lot of the things that I'm proud of right now because I was able to fight against peer pressure. Like I didn't do any drugs. I didn't do any of I didn't join gangs or anything like that, even though a lot of my friends did. But there are times that I feel I should have be determined about what I wanted and go for it instead of giving to the peer pressure and allow myself to settle with second choice or third choice. So yeah, that's one thing I would say to my 10-year self is be mindful of what you want and just go for it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. Um, awesome. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have.
Okay.
If you have anything else that you want to say before I pause the recording,
No problem.
no, nothing
I
else.
think
Okay.
it's premature. Yeah.